All right, welcome to our first ever Sunbelt Hoops podcast with Matt and Nate. And this is the countdown to Pensacola. So we're just kind of winging it here, just going to try to bring you some Sunbelt basketball knowledge leading up to the tournament, which is a month from now. Nate, a month from now, we got Sunbelt basketball tournament going on in Pensacola.
And it'll be here before you know it. You know, I've said all season, if you have a great weekend, you can jump up in the standings. If you have a bad weekend, you're going to drop in the standings. But the cream is starting to rise to the top now. And those top four are starting to pull away just a little bit. And that's what you want because you don't have to play the first 2 days.
Yeah, so, I mean, people never mind the technical difficulties here. You're a little fuzzy and froze up a little bit.
That's
so just
normal.
hang with us.
That's normal.
This is about content. So this is not a Cecil B. DeMille production. This is about for anybody who can still remember who that was. But anyway, This is about content. So Nate, we're going to start with there were six teams that went 2-0 this week. So it was kind of a weird week. We had 6 2-0 teams. We had 6 teams that went 0-2. We had 2 that went 1-1. Typically, you'd think that number would be a little bit matched, a little bit evened up, maybe 4-4-4 or 4-6-4, whatever the case may be. But it was extraordinary, strange number in that we had 6 teams that swept the week. So who was your team of the week?
I like Louisiana. I mean, they have been on a roll lately. I believe they have 7 in a row.
Yep.
They got Bob Marlin. And more importantly, I think they got Kobe Julian. Kobe Julian's been through the wars. I'm so proud of that kid. I love watching him play because he's been so injured for so many years. But now he's healthy. He's been there, done that. And, of course, they got Joe Charles, who's a big guy that stretches everybody, hits threes in the corner. And they lost their big man last year, but Hosanna Katinge, who ironically started at Coastal Carolina, ended up at another school, now's at Louisiana. Not a big scorer inside, but a big body inside. And you got Bob Marlin. I mean, he's been there, done that. He won it a couple of years ago. So
won it last year.
A little bit of a role.
I mean, well, here they are. You know, they lost Jordan Brown, which was an absolute shame. They lost him late in June, and then the young man goes to Memphis and doesn't even make it to the Christmas break. He's out of the program. So that's a shame for him. It's a shame for the Louisiana program, too. But they've been able to overcome it. And you mentioned Joe Charles, who, my gosh, he's got to be the surprise player of the year in my mind, as far as the contribution they're getting from Joe Charles relative to what everybody expected. They have 3 preseason all Sunbelt teams. He didn't make one of them, but he's having a fabulous season, rebounding, scoring, hitting threes, getting steals, the whole thing. Really been impressed with that young man. And later on in the show, and I guess we probably, again, this is kind of flying by the seat of our pants here. We got an interview with Dustin Kerns coming up in the middle.
Yep.
So stick around for that. We're going to hear from Dustin Kerns, their first place in the Sun Belt. So stick around for that. And then after that, we're going to name our Sun Belt All-Stars for the week. We're not just naming one player. We're naming 5. We're putting a team together. So of Sun Belt All-Stars, and there were a lot of guys to choose from. I'm just saying that because Joe Charles certainly is a nominee. So,
and you think about it, when we did a tournament a couple of years ago, when they won it, Themis Phillips was good, but I remember Kentrell Garnett was unbelievable in clutch situations. And they got both of them back as well.
So yep. And he's number 2. Yeah, he's number 2 in the conference in assists. Led the conference in assists per game last year. He's number 2 in the conference in assists per game this year. All right, my team is going to be the Troy Trojans. They go 2-0. I thought Troy and App State played the toughest stretch. They had the 2 Georgia schools, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, on the road, both of them. And Troy's number 2 in the conference. They're 9-2 in the conference. They're the only team to beat App State so far in the conference. So now 15-8 overall, second place. They've won 4 straight. This is the best conference start for the Trojans in 10 years. Scott Cross picks up his 300th career victory. Congratulations to him. I thought, in the post game when they asked him about getting 300, the bulk of those coming at UT Arlington, where he had great success too. A lot of that in the Sun Belt when UT Arlington was in the Sun Belt. He said 15 is the only number that matters. That's the 15 total wins they have right now. They're 15-8. They'd been 1-7 on the road going into the week, pick up 2 road wins. It's their first undefeated road trip of the season in the Sun Belt. Miles Rigby went for 20 against the Panthers. He's a freshman, and they're a very deep team. Scott Cross, you've watched it. They go 11. I mean, there's a lot of coaches go 7 or 8. He goes 11, and he's got the depth to do it. That makes him a little bit different than some of the teams that we see in this conference. But he's scored 20 plus in 3 of his last 4. 18 of his 20 came in the second half against the Panthers. Christian Eugene had a big week against Georgia Southern. He had 28 against the Eagles, 41 total for the week. Troy's number 1 in the Sun Belt, averaging 10 steals per game. They're number 9 in the country. They're getting 31 points per game off their bench. Also the number 1 rebounding team offensively in the conference, 14 plus per game, number 10 in the country. And they got Marshall and Kent State coming up this week.
And all that shows you is it's really tough to win on the road in the Sun Belt Conference. It really is. That's a really good team.
They're now 3-2 in the conference in the Sun Belt, but they had won only 1 game on the road for the season until they went to Georgia Southern, team that's been a mind-blowing team. They were 0 they didn't win a game in their non-conference, and they're now 5-6 in the conference. And Coach Henry's done a really good job. A lot of people left those guys for dead in December, and now they're just now checking back in. They're like, what the heck? I mean, how's this team in the middle of the conference going 5-6? But that's exactly what they've done. But they had a tough week. They ended up going. They were one of the 0-2 teams because they had App and they had Troy, just like Georgia State coming into their home arena. So, to me, it was between Troy. It was between Troy and App, and I gave the nod to Troy because Troy was able to go into Statesboro and win by 20 plus. Now, it was a little bit tougher for them against Georgia State on Saturday, but I went with them because they went 20 plus. So, how about App? They go 2-0 for the week, and again, we're going to hear from Dustin Kerns coming up here in just a couple of minutes. We'll hear from him. They're now 19-4. They've won it. They've had now winning streaks of at least 8 straight twice this season. Right now, they're at 8 in a row, and it's the longest winning streak in Sun Belt history for them. They've won 18 of their last 20. They lead the Sun Belt in scoring defense again. Number 3 in field goal percentage defense. Number 7 in fewest fouls per game. How about your thoughts on App State and what they've been able to do?
Well, the only reason I didn't pick them as my team of the week is I figure we got a couple weeks to go before the tournament. And I think they're going to stay on top. I mean, I've told Dustin this earlier in the season when I did one of their games. I think his team knows their roles individually better than any team in the league. They really do. They don't try to do something they can't do. Absence, unbelievable inside blocking the ball. And, of course, they got Donovan Gregory, who didn't have a good game, but at the end of the game, he scored the bucket to put him ahead late. It's just, he's been there, done that. He's like Kobe Julian. He's been there for so many years. But Dustin's kids just understand their roles better than anybody. And it's a very different team than the team that won it a couple of years ago. They were at the bottom, and they got really hot for the week. I think they're going to stay on top, whether they're first or not. I don't think they'll get out of the top 4. And when they go down to Pensacola, they have a really good following. And they should be really fun to watch. They're a very, very good basketball team. Beating Auburn at home helped. I'm sure you could care less about that now, except for the rankings and the net numbers.
It's the biggest win. Yeah, it's the biggest win on their resume. So, I mean, I don't know, and you'll hear we got a conversation coming up with Dustin Kerns, and we'll ask him about that. Doesn't really matter. I mean, their net right now is 76, 73, 76, somewhere toggling between those numbers right now. Probably not good enough to get you in as an at-large. But they're in the conversation, and so is James Madison from that standpoint, as far as an at-large.
Yeah, and I think Dustin's the biggest, and everybody in Appalachian State and Boone is the biggest Auburn fans on the planet because they want him to run the table now. But, somebody asked me the other day, can somebody get 2 teams in? If Appalachian would go undefeated, and of course they can't now because they got beat by Troy, that's the only way it could happen. I remember Coach Kress here in Charleston, where I live, did it as an independent and then did it in the Southern Conference, went undefeated. And they talked about 2 teams. But all these coaches know it's a one-bid league. So it's all coming down to Pensacola. It's possible if they run the table from now on and lose in the finals at the buzzer, but it's not likely, I don't think.
All right, how about James Madison? They were another one of the 2-0, so we're now at 4 of the 6. I don't want to say they were easy wins, but these were the wins they were supposed to get. I mean, they beat Coastal 105-67. They beat Old Dominion 78-63. They sweep what they call the Royal Rivalry.
Yep.
Sweep 3 games from the Monarchs this year. They're now 20-3 overall, 8-3 in the Sun Belt. They're third. They're tied for third with Louisiana. So we've now hit the top 4 teams in the standings with our teams the teams that went undefeated in the week. And they're 63 in the NCAA net. They had the big win against Michigan State, to start the season.
Yep.
They were undefeated forever, went undefeated in the non-conference, were ranked in the top 25. That's a team that you would think not, and Troy's right there and Louisiana's right there. I agree with you all that. And the real key is being in the top 4, winning the conference championship and being able to say you're the regular season champion is a great thing. Everybody wants that.
Sure.
Being in the top 4 is the real thing from a reality check standpoint as far as going into that tournament, which means you only have to win 3 games and not 4 or win 5, as some of the teams, the bottom 4 teams, would have to attempt to do. So your thoughts on what Mark Byington has done with the Dukes this year?
Well, I watched both games this weekend, and yes, they won. Easily is not the right way to say because there's never an easy win, but it's the way they won. I think they had 24 assists against Coastal Carolina. And after the game, I listened to Coach Byington's post-game comments, and he said, we're playing the way we're supposed to play. They want to play with pace. They want to share the ball, and they did it exceptionally well in front of us, not a sold-out arena, very close to a sold-out arena up there in a beautiful second-year arena up at JMU. But they're playing the way he wants them to play. And when you get into February, the worst thing a coach can say is, yeah, we won, but I didn't like this and I didn't like that. He loved the way they played because they shared the ball. Of course, they made shots. But when they can share the ball, as versatile as they are and as athletic as they are, and the pace they play with, they're going to be a tough out when you get down to Pensacola, no question about it.
Yeah, so let's see. Just a few more accolades for them. They've reached 20 wins in the season, the fastest ever, the earliest the Dukes have. There's only 4 20-win teams so far, and there'll be more. But Purdue,
Sure.
Indiana State, Grand Canyon, and James Madison's gotten there. And their first consecutive 20-win season since they had 3 straight, 1991, 1994. The point is this: Mark Byington has done a fabulous job. And I think that's one of the things you see with all these teams we talk now. Bob Marlin's been there a long time.
Yep.
What Dustin Kerns has done at App State, what Scott Cross is now doing at Troy after doing it at UT Arlington, what Mark Byington is doing at James Madison after doing it at Georgia Southern. You got some dynamic coaches in the Sun Belt Conference.
And it's interesting when I just heard myself when I said that about making shots. I heard Coach D'Antoni after their win. And he said, he was talking about the portal. And he said the portal is good and bad. He said it's bad because some people leave at certain schools and they don't get the opportunity. He said it's good when some kids come in from a situation that they didn't play well or they didn't play a lot. And now they're getting a chance. He said something that really struck with me. He said, some kids come in, and he's got one on his team that came in from Maryland Eastern Shore. He said last year he scored by himself at the other place. Now he's got to come in and learn how to score in our system. He said that's not easy to do. So, yeah, it's good that we have them, of course. But it's like you always say when NBA, the big 3 get together, well, they got to play together. And I always thought that was baloney. But it's true. You have to learn to play with the other guy. And in his case, they got to learn to score in his system. And everybody's got transfers now. And if it's only for 1 year, that's what you have to do, ingrain them in your system and be successful in your system. He's done it, and Mark Byington has done it exceptionally well, too.
How about what Coach Hutchkins done at Arkansas State? They're another one of our 2-0 teams this week. They are scoring the ball at an exponential rate, hitting a lot of 3-pointers. Looking for my Arkansas State notes real quick here. They go 2-0 home wins against Southern Miss. That was big for them because they're battling now Southern Miss for position. When you get in that middle spot, you're really just jockeying for position when you're in that middle 6. And that's where they are right now. They're currently tied for 6 with Southern Miss, but their 5 conference losses, they've been close. I mean, they got 6 wins. Their 5 conference losses have come by a total of just 20 points. And they've scored 85-plus points in the conference, in the Sun Belt, in 5 of those games. That's the first time they've done that since 2005. He's done a tremendous job. Caleb Fields, we'll talk about that guy. Isaiah Nelson, those guys, those are nominees for our Sun Belt All Stars that we're going to talk about at the end of the show. But Arkansas State, I don't know if it's the surprise team in the conference, but it's right up there.
Well, Coach Hodgson and Charlie Henry at Georgia Southern, both former Alabama assistants last year,
Yep.
and they both, Coach D'Antoni, they asked him about that. He goes, "Hey, I've been doing that since the day I got here, shooting threes." But those two guys have come into those programs, and it's threes and layups. That's all they do. If they take a mid-range shot, it's almost a mistake. And I've seen them in games, Arkansas State, when they're dead. They're down 19. And all of a sudden, they're down 4 because they believe in the three-point shot, both teams. And he's done a great job in making it. Now, I just talked about how players come in and have to change. Well, he came in and changed the system. Arkansas State did not take as many threes like that last year. They make 10 a game this year. They're first in the league. And Georgia Southern makes 9.6 a game. They're second in the league. So they believe in the analytics of threes. I didn't. I'm starting to lean that way a little bit now. But if you make your kids believe it, they believe it, and they're not out of the game. The question is, can they win 4 in a row doing that, going to Pensacola? Or if you're in the bottom, can they win 5 in a row?
Right. Yeah. Right now, they're in that 4 category because they're in the middle 6, and it looks like they're going to stay there.
That's what Appalachian
No, it's
did
not
a couple
terrible.
Years ago.
It is. I mean, it is doable because it's not 4 straight. It's win 1, take a day off, and then 3 straight. So the way the tournament's constructed, it does buy a little bit of breathing room. You win that first game. If you're in the middle 6, you're going to get a day off, and then you're in the boat with the top 4. Except they haven't played yet, and they got to win 3, and at that point you still got to win 3. So Texas State's the other 2-0 team. Maybe the big surprise out of that group. They came into the week with 1 conference win, really struggling, but it looks like they're starting to put it together. They tripled their win total with a victory over South Alabama, and then they beat Southern Miss, snapped a 6-game Sun Belt losing streak. So they go from 1 win in the conference to now 3. They're 3-8. They're in a 4-way tie for 10th. And that's a big race to watch down the stretch.
Absolutely.
Down the stretch, pardon me, that 4-way tie for 10th. Because one of those teams is going to win it. That'll be a lottery ticket, which means they don't have to play the first day. The other 3 that are in that tie are not going to, and they're going to have to play that first day.
Yeah, to play it on Tuesday is tough simply because it's only 1 of 5 you got to win. But Terrence Johnson a couple of years ago, they were at the bottom, and they fought like crazy in the tournament. And I remember when we spoke to him before every game, he said, "I want to talk to you tomorrow. I want to talk to you tomorrow." And he kept winning. Yep. So those kids believe in him. He believes in them. They play an up-tempo style, but their main thing is they got to stop you. If they can stop you, they got a chance of beating anybody. And they just get in your face. They're not overly big. They're quick. They're athletic. And they play his style of basketball. So they're fun to watch when they're playing defense well.
Yeah, Brandon Love, Davian Sykes both had double-doubles this week in separate games in each one of those victories. So that gets us through our 2-0s. We'll kind of breeze through these other ones a little bit quicker. So there were 2 1-1s. That was Marshall and Old Dominion. And the big story in this group here is Old Dominion. They've won only 2 conference. They've had a heck of a difficult season. Coach Jeff Jones has had to step away for health reasons. And they have 2 conference wins, and both of them have come against Marshall, of all things. I mean, out of all the teams to be beating twice in the year, it's Marshall. They do it 91-66 at their place early on, and then this past week they do it 83-76 at Huntington, close the game on a 20-5 run. It's their first true road win of the season, and Kieran Donahue, interim coach, big win for him, big win for their team.
And the thing that surprised me about what they did is Vashon Alette, who I had earlier in the year, a freshman, an amazing talent, not played the last 3 games, not listed in their stats or on their roster on their website. So I don't know what happened there. But they did it without him. Take your leading scorer off the team and then go to Huntington and win. Trust me, I coached in the Southern Conference against Marshall many, many years ago. Huntington is not an easy place to win.
No.
And when they go in there and get a win with an interim coach, and we wish Coach Jones all the best wishes coming back from the health issues he's had. But for Coach Donahue to go in there and get that one, that's a fun bus trip back to the shore in Virginia Beach.
No doubt. You think that's a bus trip? That's a long bus trip.
When I was at Appalachian, it was a bus trip.
It
Maybe
was a
they
bus
fly.
trip.
I
It
hope
was a
they
bus
do.
trip. I got you. All right. Okay, so we had two. Those are the 2 1-1s. We had 6 teams went 0-2. Like we said, kind of a weird week in that this
Yeah.
happened. So that was South Alabama, Coastal, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, Southern Miss, ULM. So I'll just say that I thought the toughest out of those 0-2s was Georgia State because it was App and Troy, and Georgia Southern was also 0-2 against those
Yeah.
same ones. But I go Georgia State over Georgia Southern in this category simply because, the Panthers had a shot to win both those games. I think with App, it was tied at 30 at halftime. Mountaineers put the pedal down and scored 51 points. Second half, they win by 10.
The great run to
Georgia
start the
State
second half.
Georgia State was able to hang with Troy the entire game. I mean, it was like back and forth in that second half. It was close the whole way. Troy wins. So the Panthers now, they've lost 7 straight, and now they go to Louisiana in the midweek. So I don't know that's a tough place to try to snap a 7-game losing streak.
Yeah, and I was just looking at the stats last night. They're the best free throw shooting team in the league, and normally down the stretch, that makes a big difference. I guess they weren't close enough. And then Georgia Southern, great game against Appalachian State, packed house. They go ahead late, and then Mr. Donovan Gregory, there's a timeout, and I'm watching the game. I'm saying, guys, there's only one guy that's going to have the ball in his hands. Donovan Gregory might not shoot it, but he's going to make the decision. And he had like 7 points at the time, I think. Goes in the lane, scores, and then Georgia Southern gets a layup at the buzzer to win it, and Abson blocks it. So they were right in the game too. The 2 Georgia schools went 0-2 against 2 really good teams too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Okay, and out of that 0-2 group, I think the most disappointing. I got 2 now. South Alabama just because of where they are right now, 3-8 after playing in the finals last year. It's been a tough season for those guys. They dropped 2. They lose at ULM. They lose at Louisiana. Southern Miss too. And I'm going to throw it and now take this. Those were both those teams were playing on the road. So it's hard to win on the road.
Yep.
But Southern Miss started the week. They were 6-3, Nate, in the conference. They needed to get a split in there somewhere. And as tough as it is, sometimes you got to get a road win. They would have been right there in close to that group, in that top 4 group that we've been talking about. But they lose those 2. So now they're 2 games out of the top 4 after losing at Arkansas State and Texas State. Again, tough places to win, but they needed to try to get a win out of those 2 places.
And a tough trip, too. That's a long way to go from Southern Mississippi. But as a coach, you want to win them all, of course. But realistically, if you can split on the road in this league, it's not a bad weekend. And like you said, especially the situation they were in, it wins. And then Coastal Carolina has a freshman that's lighting it up. Myers averaging 20 a game the last 2 games. John Ojiako's getting double-doubles every night, but they're not getting any other help. And they lost 2 as well. You can't win basketball games, just 2 guys. So those 2 are playing well, but nobody else in the team is producing for them. And when you go 0-2 in the league and then have another road game, it makes it tough when you go home. You just got to try to regroup. Because I'm telling you, I did this for a lot of years. Assistant coaches are sitting there looking at the standings. If we win this one, do we move up 1? If we win 2, do we move up 1? And that's what you're looking at because you don't want to be in the bottom 4.
And Benny Moss is the interim coach. Coach Cliff Ellis, of course, back in the non-conference, legendary coach, retired. So best of luck to him. We're going to miss having Cliff with us, talking to him in the tournament, no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
Benny Moss, the interim there. So, so that gets us through what happened in the week. That's going to tee us up in time now to talk to App State coach Dustin Kerns. Coach, thanks a lot for being with us. Congratulations on a great start to the Sun Belt season so far.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be on here. Good to see you.
So what has been the key to making basketball a thing in Boone? You've had 2 sellouts this year. The mountains are on fire with App State basketball. You sold out against Auburn. You sold out again against James Madison a couple of weeks ago in the battle for first place in the conference. You've made basketball popular, maybe more than it's ever been at App State.
Well, I think it's a lot of people, right? I think we'll start with our players first. Our players have just played great basketball. The way we have played, I think that the fans resonate with the blue collar approach and the toughness and team basketball. And so I think that it's been a fun style of play for people to enjoy. And then obviously we've been fortunate to win a lot this year, which is, which is a big deal to create some excitement and things like that. But, our coaching staff, administration, I think a lot of people are involved with getting our program elevated.
Well, you certainly have been able to do that. As you sit, we're now past the halfway point. You guys are in first place, game lead on Troy, the only team that's beaten you so far this season, maybe the only team that will beat you during the Sun Belt this season. But I thought it was interesting going back to the James Madison sellout. I think it was the fourth in program history. And I saw a very interesting article, might have been on the App State men's basketball website. I thought it was very poignant in that, the first time you sold out, first time they ever had a game in that building, it was North Carolina. People came to see North Carolina, generally speaking. Second time, I think Steph Curry, the phenomenon was going on. People came to see the Steph Curry phenomenon when Davidson played you guys. Third time was Auburn this year, get an SEC school, in there. People want to come see Auburn. You guys beat Auburn, huge win, biggest win of the season for you from a resume standpoint. The next time, though, James Madison, people were there to see App State play James Madison. People were there to see the Mountaineers play. It wasn't the coming attraction. It wasn't the visiting team. It was all about you guys. Did you kind of sense that too?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I thought our students, our community, our fans, alumni really came out and supported App State. And we had a real, true, really home court atmosphere that I thought elevated our team and thought that it, hurt James Madison. And, certainly we had a great environment against Auburn, but like you said, I thought that this was probably the biggest time that, hey, let's go support App State, our Mountaineers.
Well, they did that, and congratulations on that. So I read your first game you ever coached was against Ferrum, your first home game, and I think 1,000 people showed up. So you've come a long way with the program in 5 years. There's no doubt about that. Just a little bit of a deep dive on you personally for people who don't know you, who are watching this and don't know the Dustin Kerns story. You were a student assistant at Clemson under Larry Shyatt, if I'm not mistaken. Then Buzz Peterson, you're a grad assistant with him at Tennessee. Mike Young at Wofford. Of course, Mike's now at Virginia Tech. Kerry Keating at Santa Clara. And then you became a head coach a couple of seasons, successful seasons at Presbyterian. Who out of that group, or maybe someone outside that group, was your mentor who, if there was any one single person who made you the basketball coach that you are today, who is that?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all those, and then my first job before Tennessee was Mike Sutton at Tennessee Tech. Gave me my first opportunity there. But I really think it was all those. I spent the longest time with Coach Young at Wofford, 7 years. But, I still think that it would be all those people. I've been fortunate to be around a lot of great coaches and great people. And I think I've been fortunate to also have, hire some really great assistant coaches that have been a Presbyterian here at App State. And some of those guys have been with me the whole time. And so, I think that those guys make me better too. And those guys are a big part of our success. But I would say all those people. I learned a lot from all those people.
Yeah. Was there anything that you learned in those 2 years as a head coach at Presbyterian that prepared you for what you're doing now that has kind of paved the way for the success you're having at App State?
Yeah, well, at Presbyterian, we took over a situation that, I think it was something like 14 straight losing seasons or something like that. And then it's just a factual thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got to App State had 8 straight losing seasons. And so the experience there was similar of how we were able to turn the program around. We won 18 games in year 1 at App State. We went to the NCAA tournament in year 2. Year 3, we finished second in the regular season in the Sun Belt, which is the highest finish ever in the regular season. Year 4, we beat a Power 5 for the first time in eight years. And then year 5, here we are, beat another Power 5 and off to the best start since 1940 in App State. So 83 years.
Long time.
And so it's been a lot of work by a lot of people, but I think that the experience at Presbyterian, helped us with this experience because it was a similar situation with trying to change the perception, the narrative of the program.
So you mentioned the Auburn win. It's the biggest win on your resume. As we speak right now, I think your net ranking is 76, thereabouts, which is good. It's really good. It's second best in the conference behind James Madison. Does it still come down to that weekend in Pensacola for you guys in your mind to get into the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think so. I think our league is moving in the right direction. I think that, as of right now, us and James Madison in the present have put ourselves in position to at least, maybe be in the conversation. But this is a competitive conference. It's a competitive league. And so, at this point, it's been, I think, 10, 11 years since our league got multiple bids in. But you never know. There's a lot of basketball left to play. And as far as the other leagues go, teams maybe play themselves out of the bubble. Maybe some teams like us play themselves into it. But we're just trying to stay in the present one day at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything the Sun Belt can do? I mean, obviously you guys are really good, and James Madison's really good, and Louisiana's really good, and Marshall's good. A bunch of really good teams at the top of the conference. Yeah, and I mentioned Troy, of course. Yeah, they're number 2 in the conference right now. But I mentioned you two guys, James Madison, because of your net ranking, and it does put you in the conversation. But will the system, I guess, is what I'm asking, will it ever allow you guys to legitimately be able to get in there? I mean, because you schedule hard, you play well, you win games. You get Auburn in your place, and I know they beat Michigan State. And will the system ever really allow for the Sun Belt to be able to get, consistently multiple bids? Because for that to happen, the power conferences got to schedule you guys, and the more you win, the more reluctant they are to schedule you.
Yeah, I want to think positive and say yes. I think that if we keep moving the needle, I think last year I want to say that Sun Belt had 4 teams in the top 100 in that, and so right now currently we've got 2. I think we're moving in the right direction as a league. I think and so I think if we keep doing our part and keep being strategic, and the Sun Belt is a really good league, and I think as long as we keep moving in the right direction, I want to say yes. It's certainly if you have a couple teams, have special outlier like seasons.
Let's talk about your team real quick. You went 2-0 over the weekend. You and Troy were on the tandem. I thought was the toughest weekend because you had Georgia State and Georgia Southern in your week. You won both of those, had a big second half, and then pulled away from Georgia State in the game played in Atlanta. Had a real battle with Georgia Southern. You were behind early, had to come back and win that thing in overtime. And what's a rivalry game going back to the Southern Conference days? How'd you feel about your team coming out of that 2-0 week?
Yeah, winning on the road is hard. It's just hard in college basketball. It's hard in the Sun Belt. And so for us to go down and going into this weekend, Georgia State and Georgia Southern were both undefeated at home in Sun Belt play. Fortunately, us and Troy both were able to get 2 wins, so now they both are not. But they both have been really good at home. They're both talented. And so for us to go on the road and win 2 really tough games, was really big for us. And so we understand the position we're in right now of where we're at in the standings as of currently. So we're getting everybody's best shot. We had 2 blowouts this wequend, so we're trying, we're going to keep, experiencing those things. And we've just got to learn to love that. We've got to learn to love to quote, be a big game and, certainly be a part of games that matter.
Justin Abson, if he's not the defensive player of the year in the conference, I don't know who is. I mean, over 3 blocks per game, had another monster week this past week, points and rebounds, just getting it done. And he's just a sophomore. Talk about what a contribution he has made to what you guys do. And again, number 1 scoring defense in the conference, number 1 in most of the big defensive categories in the conference, top 10 in the nation in some of those categories.
Yeah, I thought he had to, maybe the best weekend he's had as a Mountaineer. I just thought from a scoring standpoint, from a rebounding, he almost had a triple-double at Georgia State. Mm-hmm. And then,
with blocks being the other part of the hardest one to get.
Yeah, and then follows it up at Georgia Southern with, a season high 20 points, rebounded well again, and then had the game winning block, to win the game.
Yep.
And so, really, really proud of him. I would be shocked if he's not Sunbelt Player of the Week this week. And I don't know how others players did, but he had a really, really big weekend, and he's just playing well. He's playing confident, and if he's not, he's certainly rebounding and blocking shots, and like I said, he's ended up scoring really well, and so we've got a good group of depth. For us, it's kind of somebody different every night. And I think that's one thing that makes us difficult is it's hard to just key in on one or two players.
Yeah, it was Trayvon Spillers early on. He was Sunbelt Player of the Week at least once. And then Terrence Harcum had a huge week for you guys, scored nearly 50 total points in those 2 games.
Yeah, Terrence is playing well. He's a worker. And so as well as Terrence played, but as good as Justin Abson played, but Terrence Harcum had a really good weekend as well. 26 points on Saturday. I think he might have had 18 in Atlanta, Georgia State, but he's playing really
I think he ended up with 48 total, so maybe 22. So I go back and check. Yeah.
I think
he had a big week.
And then, Trayvon Spillers had another double-double, on Saturday. Donovan Gregory hit so we had 5 different players score in, I think, the last 5 possessions of the game. Miles Tate, Donovan Gregory, Terrence Harcum, Justin Abson, Trayvon Spillers. And so that's a pretty key stat. I don't know I think it was in the overtime we had 5 different players score, but the last 5 possessions of the game, 5 different players scored. I think that says a lot about our team.
I think it bodes well for your team down the stretch once you get into the tournament as well. You get in those late game situations. It's not a matter of we got to get the ball to this one guy. You've got a number of guys who can come through for you in the clutch and hit that big shot. Donovan Gregory was that guy at Georgia Southern on Saturday, and just what a fabulous career he's had. He's going to end up being one of the best players ever to come through your program. And it was he. He doesn't have the numbers that some of those other guys that we mentioned, but he just keeps getting it done, and he had the big shot in the final 10 seconds to give you the game-winning points.
Absolutely. He's been a part of a lot of wins here. He's been really instrumental in turning this program around, and so I think the best is yet to come with him.
Do you have an unsung hero for the season?
You know what? Like I said, it's really hard to pinpoint one person. That's the strength of our team. I feel like we got 9 starters. I mean, even guys coming off the bench of Chris Mantis and C.J. Huntley was with us in Pensacola as a preseason all-conference player, and whether it's Jordan Marsh or Xavier Brown, like defensively, he might not show up in the stat sheet, but like defensively, really impacts the game. Whether it's in assist numbers, but like Miles Tate's had some big moments for us. I think it's just I think that's part of the strength of our team is it's somebody different every night.
My final question, looking ahead to this week, you're getting ready to hit the road, play Texas State on Wednesday night. Then you come back home. You've got Ohio in the second half of the MAC Sun Belt Challenge. The first one played in November. You get the return trip from the MAC this week. It's a nice kind of break right here in the middle of the season, past the midway point, I think, to pit these two peer conferences, as they like to call them, against each other. Your thoughts on Texas State, a team that just went 2-0, had 1 win going into the last week in the conference, triple that. They now have 3, and we all know how tough they can play, especially in San Marcos. You get them there, and then you get the Bobcats back home at your place on Saturday.
Yeah, Coach Johnson does a really good job, and they had 2 really good weekends. 2 good wins this week, and obviously it's a long way out there, and we've got to turn around and leave tomorrow. But we've got Toledo on Saturday. So we got
Toledo. Pardon me. I'm sorry.
The Rockets.
So for some reason I wrote down Ohio. So you get
Ohio.
The Rockets.
They're from
the Rockets.
Yeah. But Texas State, always a tough place to play. Well-coached team and program. So certainly another tall task for us. And then, like you said, come back and play Toledo, who's currently second in the net in the MAC, and a really good program. I think Toledo has won the regular season, something like 2 or 3 of the last 4 or 5 years. And so not as familiar with their program right now as I'll need to be on Thursday when we get back. But right now certainly our focus is on Texas State.
Yeah, it's a tough, gritty Midwestern conference. So I think it's an interesting matchup of styles here. Sun Belt and MAC, kind of two different leagues. I think I don't know, maybe they don't, but I kind of always have the impression they're playing basketball a different way and being successful a different way. So I think it's a nice matchup here between these two conferences.
Yeah, this has been a neat challenge. Obviously, we dropped the first challenge, so we got an opportunity to try to get one back here in the second leg of the challenge. And so I think it's been good for the conferences. We each get a home game, and we obviously get a road game. And so, I think it's helped with scheduling. I think it's helped with hopefully bringing some more awareness and perception to both conferences. And so, I look for this to continue.
Does it help the committee at all, you think, when you have something like this? Not necessarily the MAC, but any conference, when because it all comes down to comparing resumes ultimately. And I don't know whether either one of these conferences will be in that situation where they're getting anybody other than the automatic. But in the future, perhaps, does this help the committee, you think?
You know what? I don't think it hurts. And I think, Matt, you bring up a good point. I just think that I don't think it hurts that we're still trying to really be strategic with our non-conference scheduling and play quality programs and play and play top programs and top teams. And so, I don't think it hurts. But as we know, it just comes down to winning.
It does indeed. You've done a lot of that this year, 10 wins in the Sun Belt Conference. Good luck this week as you embark to San Marcos and play the Bobcats on Wednesday. Thanks a lot, Dustin, for being with us.
Matt, always good to see you. Thanks, man. Go Mountaineers, take the stairs.
All right, great to talk to head coach Dustin Kerns. Nate, let's wrap up the show here by talking about our Sun Belt All-Stars. And again, we're not picking one player of the week. We're picking 5. We're picking a team. So this is kind of the way we did this. There's 5 guys. So we can go 2 bigs, 3 guards. We can go 3 bigs, 2 guards, some combination, but it can't be 5 guards or it can't be 5 rim protectors. No. It's kind of got to be a team, right? So, okay, I'm gonna let you take the lead on this thing, and I'll just chime in as to whether I agree or not. So you go ahead and get us started on these Sun Belt All-Stars for the week.
All right, I'm going to start out with Caleb Fields for Arkansas State.
I agree with that.
Pardon me?
I agree.
Not a bad weekend. Over Southern Miss, he has 27 points. 12 of 18 from the field, did not take a 3 in 2024. That's unusual. And 8 assists. Second game of the weekend, he wins again over ULM, 22 points and 13 assists. For the season, he's averaging 13 points a game and 6 assists. For the weekend, 25 points and 11 assists. That's not.
And he's number 1 by more than an assist per game.
That's amazing.
Leads the Sun Belt in assists per game. Caleb is having a great season. He's flourishing in the new system under the coach. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for assists when you're scoring a lot of points, which is what Arkansas State is doing. So I agree with Caleb Fields, who's number 2.
Well, you always talk about Steph Curry, 50, 40, 90 to be a great shooter. Kevon Voiles for Marshall. On the first game of the week, they beat Old Dominion. He has a career high, 23 points, 4 assists. 2 days later, sets a new career high.
Yep.
For 26 points and 4 assists. He was scoring 14 points a game for the season and 1.8 assists. For the weekend, he goes 25 points and 4 assists and just lit it up.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going with Kevon Voiles too. Agree with you on that. Totals for the week in 2 games: 49 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, 9 for 20 on his 3-pointers. I'm in agreement with you on that. Next,
That's a good week. All right, let's go to the front court. We talked about Joe Charles earlier for Louisiana. Averaging 11 a game and 10 rebounds, which is very, very good. He's averaging a double-double. And 1 steal a game. But Thursday night, he has 19 points and 11 rebounds, 3 steals, 5 threes, and he plays 38 minutes in a win over ULM. On Saturday, he doesn't have as many points, 16, but he has 15 rebounds and 4 steals and plays 36 minutes He's averaging 11 and 10. He goes 17 and a half and 13 for the weekend and 4 steals. And this kid's 6'9". I mean, that's amazing. Yeah, he's 6'9", but he kind of plays on the perimeter and is a great three-point shooter from the corners.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, this guy's an unsung hero. From the standpoint that he's not on any of the preseason teams, but he has really made up a big difference losing Jordan Brown. This guy has stepped in. He's number 2 in the Sun Belt rebounds per game, number 3 offensive rebounds per game, number 1 steals per game, number 10 3-point shooting percentage. So he can step out and hit number 7 in blocks. I mean, this guy is a stat stuffer. So next guy.
Speaking of blocks, let's go with Mr. Justin Absom, the sophomore from Appalachian State. Talk about player development. He was good last year.
Yeah, he's good. But he was a shot blocker.
Averaging 8 and 7, which is respectable for a team that has a lot of perimeter scoring. Thursday, he gets 15 points, 16 rebounds, and 7 blocks. 7 in a win at Georgia State. They win by 10. Saturday, he gets 20 points and 8 rebounds, 4 blocks, goes 9 of 13 from the field, but the 4th block won the basketball game because Georgia State had a layup. He blocked it, the buzzer went off, and they win. So for the weekend, 17 and a half points, 12 rebounds, 5.5 blocks, and he leads the league in blocks.
Yeah, and he's number 9 in rebounding as well. I mean, he's another guy. He's getting postseason honors.
Yeah. By the way,
Charles and Abson, they're getting postseason honors, and they were not. In fact, none of these guys we've talked about so far, one of them was on the preseason. Any of the 1, 2, or 3 preseason teams.
And that game was in overtime. Georgia State would go up 3, Appalachian would come down, and I got it written down here. Who was it? Xavier Brown hit 1. Terrence Harkin hit a huge 3 in the overtime after Georgia Southern at home goes up 3. Crowd goes nuts. He comes down and bombs a 3 and ties it up.
Yeah, well, Harkin was a guy, and someone gets left off. That guy scored 48 points for the week.
Yeah.
24 average, and he doesn't make our team. So, but he had a fabulous week and gets a nice pat on the back from Appalachian State Mountaineers fans. So,
all right, last one.
Last guy. Yeah.
JMU, Noah Friedel, I go with. For the season, he's really good. 12 points a game, 44% from the field, 39% from 3. But on Thursday, he goes 17 points. Saturday, he goes 18 points. And he goes 6 of 7 field goals, 4 of 5 threes on Thursday, 3 of 5 threes on Saturday. And he goes 73% from the field and 70% from 3 in 2 games at 18 points a game. That's why JMU won them both.
Yeah, and he's number 7 in the Sun Belt 3-point shooting percentage and number 3 in threes per game, starting to play like the player that they thought. And he was fine last year. Don't want to diminish what he did last year, but he's even better this year in his second year in the program after coming from South Dakota State.
Yeah.
And by the way, last night on CBS Sports Network, I'm watching there was nothing else going on. I mean, some fake football, the Pro Bowl, whatever they want to call that, and not interested. So I'm watching South Dakota State versus South Dakota in the Rush. They call it the Rushmore State rivalry. So I thought it was a lot of fun just to see some basketball that I don't typically normally watch because, like you, we're watching Sunbelt.
Sure.
If not watching Sunbelt, we're watching ACC or we're watching, SEC. And then it kind of branches out from there. So that was a fun game. So, but I don't put Friedel. I didn't put Friedel on mine. I'm going with Arkansas State forward Isaiah Nelson. 27 points total, 22 total rebounds, 7 block shots, 10 for 19 from the floor for the week. And he came in, so he ends up averaging 13 and a half points for the week. He averages 8, for the season. Averaged 11 rebounds per game. He averages 6, so nearly doubled the number. Averages 2 blocks per game. He had 3.5 blocks per game. He's number 4 in the Sun Belt in blocks. He's number 9 in offensive rebounds. So that's the only place where we disagreed on our Sun Belt All-Stars for the week. You go Noah Friedel. I go Isaiah Nelson from Arkansas State.
And let me tell you one, talk about watching South Dakota State. The other night, there was no good games on, and I really wanted to watch Caitlin Clark play for Iowa. At Maryland, my alma mater.
Can't miss her. She's on every time she plays.
She's unbelievable. I never really watched the game and studied her. She's not Steph Curry, but she's only a sophomore. She's unbelievable in scoring the ball. She's got a good team, but she is a special talent.
Yeah,
Fun to
she
watch.
is. She's that player that she's taken the women's basketball game to the next level because she's
Absolutely.
that. Because she's kind of like like you mentioned Steph Curry, what he did for basketball and how he brought in a whole new audience. If you want to go deep dive in old school, what Larry Bird and Magic Johnson did for
Yep.
the game, the college game and the pro game. So she is that kind of player that has brought in an audience like they've never seen before. A superstar player that all you got to do is say Caitlin Clark and people are watching. And so, congratulations to her and what they've been able to
Yep.
do with that. So, no
And
doubt
so
about it. So,
poised after the game. Nothing but praise for her teammates. And that was a big win to win at Maryland. And it was fun to watch. She's fun to watch.
it was fun to watch. All right, so that's gonna wrap up our first one, our first podcast.
All
Hopefully, there'll be
right.
a second. Hopefully, we'll have a second
Hopefully.
one. We'll wait and see how this goes. But if you like it, subscribe to it. So it'll be on Spotify, the audio version. We'll get the video version. I'm gonna try. I think I'll put it up on YouTube. So again, I told you we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants on this thing. So it's a work in progress.
Inaugural show.
Literally as we go, we're putting together the ideas.
Cool.
We thought it'd be fun to talk Sunbelt basketball
Sure.
leading up to Pensacola. So, Nate, thanks. We'll do this again next
My pleasure.
week, and we'll get a guest on. Hey, and by the way, go to Pensacola. Enjoy the tournament.
Absolutely.
You can get your tickets through your individual schools. You can get your tickets at the Pensacola Bay Center via Ticketmaster. They're available there. And, of course, Nate and I are going to have full coverage. We'll have every one of the men's games outside of the championship. We'll turn that over to the big guys at ESPN. But we'll have all the games on ESPN Plus starting, I think it's 12 total games do we do? I think
Yes.
we do 12 total games.
12.
Yes, we do. 12 total games, all of them on ESPN Plus, and starting on Tuesday. And Noah Frary's going to have the women's side of it, and they'll have all those as well. So be sure to check us out on ESPN Plus. Be sure to check out the games yourself at the Pensacola Bay Center. Make a little mini vacay for that week, that first week of March. And also check us out here on our Sunbelt Hoops podcast.
Love it. Thanks a lot. It's going to be a good season.